Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to walk you through the basics of the KeyFlow add-on for Blender. We'll be creating this animation together step by step. If you want to learn KeyFlow quickly and effectively, I recommend following along in Blender as you watch. The video is structured to gradually introduce more advanced concepts as we go, but everything will stay simple enough to understand even if you're just starting out. To begin, I've already set up the scene. You can download it using the link in the description or use your own. The model I'm using comes from Sketchfab and was created by Min Nguyen. Big thanks to him for this beautiful asset, and sorry if I butchered the name. Let's start the animation by adding a camera and positioning it however we like. Now we'll build our animation by gradually animating various aspects of both the camera and the object until we achieve the final result. Before doing that, let's create an empty and parent our object to it. This step is important. KeyFlow treats all objects within the same hierarchy as part of a single animation. So if you're animating both the camera and the object, they should be in the same hierarchy. That's why we use a parent object to group everything together. With the parenting done, we can begin animating. I'll start by setting an initial position and inserting a keyframe by pressing I. Then I'll move forward 10 frames and rotate the object. Here's where we begin setting up our points of interest. My workflow with KeyFlow involves adding a new point of interest every 10 frames. So at frame 0, 10, 20, 30 and so on until you covered all your points of interest. Right now, the animation doesn't look like much. But this is where KeyFlow shines. It lets us precisely control the timing of these keyframes. To do that, select the object and click Merge Keyframe. You'll see that the keyframes disappear, and if you check the object's transformations, they've been replaced with drivers. For example, under the Z rotation, you'll find a generated expression that controls the animation. To play it, go to the parent object at the top of the hierarchy, and you'll notice a new slider called Animation Control. By moving this slider, you can play the animation. Going past 60 does nothing, as there are no keyframes past this frame, and going before 0 is also blocked. Now let's recreate the animation using the graph editor. I'll set a keyframe at frame 0 with Animation Control set to 0. Then at the end, I'll set it to 60, which gives us back our full animation range. Next, let's animate the slowdown at each point of interest. For that, we'll add keyframes for different animation control values. The first one is at frame 10, so I'll keyframe animation control to 10. Then create another keyframe for the second point of interest, and so on. For timing adjustment, I'll flatten the curve of the first keyframe in the graph editor to make the animation slow down as it approaches that point. The flatter the curve, the slower the motion. The steeper it is, the faster. For example, I can make the beginning steeper to create a fast start, then ease into the first point by adjusting the handles. I'll do the same for the next keyframe and tweak the curve to make the transition quicker by scaling the keyframes using individual origin. By repeating this for each point of interest, we get a fluid animation with well-defined pacing. So far, we could have created this animation manually without KeyFlow. But here's where it becomes truly powerful. The same animation curve we just built can now control everything else. Camera position, focus, focal length, without needing to recreate it for each element. Without KeyFlow, we'd have to animate and manage curves for each object separately, which is time-consuming and hard to maintain. Let's continue the animation. I'll now click Restore Keyframe to bring back the original keyframes for reference. I like working with the timeline and graph editor side by side. The timeline handles the base animation and the graph editor controls the KeyFlow animation. Let's add point of interest for the camera. I'll create a new empty to serve as a target. Then go into the camera settings and add a track 2 constraint targeting that empty. Now wherever I move the empty, the camera will follow. I'll insert a keyframe at the start, then at frame 10, I'll move it to highlight a specific part of the model. At frame 20, I'll zoom in on another detail and I'll continue like that for the rest of the animation. To use the same animation curve we created for the object's rotation, I'll parent the empty to the control object and click Merge Keyframe again. Now, that same curve controls both the rotation of the object and the empty's position. You might notice that the empty's movement feels robotic, even with a smooth curve. That's because the driver interpolation between the original keyframes is linear. We can fix that using the animation smoothness setting. Set it to 10 for example, and the result will feel much more natural and professional. Next, let's animate the camera's focal length. This is a bit trickier. The Merge Keyframe button only creates drivers for custom properties and animated transforms like position, rotation and scale, not for things like focal length. We'll need to use a custom property to link the focal length to our animation. Since my camera isn't yet in the hierarchy, I'll add it in first. Then I'll create a new custom property on it, or on any other object within the hierarchy, and link it to the focal length. I do this by right-clicking the custom property, copy as new driver, then pasting it into the focal length field on the camera by using the paste driver function. The field turns purple, meaning it's now controlled by the driver. Now, I can animate the custom property instead, and each point of interest can have a unique focal setting. After that, click Merge Keyframe again, and just like that, the focal length becomes part of the master animation curve. Again, if the animation feels stiff, you can use the smoothness setting to improve it. One more setting you should know is animation hold. This lets you stay longer on each point of interest. Right now, the animation just zips from one point to the next. If you want the camera to linger, increasing animation hold with the target empty selected will stretch the time spent on each focus point, making it more cinematic. Keep refining the timing and keyframe curves until you're happy with the animation. You can even add more animated parameters later if needed. And that's how you create a clean, flexible animation using KeyFlow, a process that would have taken much more time and effort without the add-on. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to try KeyFlow, the link is in the description. There's even a free version that includes all the features used in this video, except for the Restore Keyframe button. If you want to go further and create more advanced effects, be sure to check out the other KeyFlow tutorials on my channel. Thanks for following along, I hope you liked the result, and I'll see you next time.